I mean, it can get exhausting. So anything to help sort of break that ice where it's not that awkward first interaction of like, who are you? Where are you from? What do? You can get all that kind of out of the way and just get to the root of the connection as quickly as possible.
Your business's success depends on relationships with customers, relationships with employees, and relationships with stakeholders. What do they all have in common? They're all human. Because no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Welcome to the Human Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Karl Pontau. Each week, I'll bring you stories, insights, and practical advice from experts that you can apply to your growing company and daily life. This week, I'm excited to connect with Megan Martin. Megan is an expert at one thing, connecting humans. With over 15 years of experience in the hospitality industry, she specializes in using community and event design to assist organizations in advancing business objectives by focusing on human-to-human connections. Megan is currently the Technology and Innovation Principal for EMC Meetings and Events. Megan, congrats on your success in the hospitality industry and welcome to the Human Connection Podcast.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
So I've been to a ton of events in the past, and there's always that experience of where you walk around, you talk to a lot of people, but you don't really meet anyone very well. You have a bunch of business cards afterwards, and when you look back at like the next day, you're like, who are these people? So how do you design events to better facilitate human-to-human connections?
I love this question and I love talking about it, so I'm glad to be here today. I think a couple things have to happen from an event organizer standpoint to do that. Is one, we have to understand why people are coming to our events more than anything. So on a registration form, when they're checking into the event, we have to know why they're coming, because not everybody comes to events to network and find connection. They may simply be coming just to do business. So they want that huge stack of business cards when they go home. That's a successful event for them. Now, most of us these days are going because we want the networking. We want to see our peers. We want to meet new people, extend that human-to-human interaction. From a business standpoint, we also want to get in front of our customers and meet new prospects, because we know business grows faster when we have that human connection and it's less transactional and it's more relationship driven. We have more success with our customer base that way. So first thing we have to do is understand why they're coming. Once we do that, then you can start facilitating personalization inside of the events. One way to do that is with technology. So there's a lot of AI matchmaking out there that is supported in the event tech space, whether that's through a mobile app or a website. It's kind of like Tinder for business events, if you will. Like it'll give you, you might have seen this at some of the events you go to. It'll see like, based on your interests and your profile that you put in there, and you say like, I'm here to network. These are the topics I'm interested in. And it may not all be business. It may be like, I like dogs. I'm a cat person. I'm a wine drinker. I like whiskey, whatever it may be. Then it can start facilitating those matchmaking and say like, here's 5 people or 10 people we think you should meet because you have common interests. So that's one way, using technology to do it. What I love to do is creating spaces within the event for that networking, meaning like neighborhoods. So like I'm from the Pacific Northwest. I want to meet people that are in my area so I can continue that relationship when I get home. So I'm more likely to go to a neighborhood or a section on the show floor or within the conference that's just for people that live in the Pacific Northwest region. So it's basically creating these like mini micro communities within the larger event. Now, obviously, like huge conferences like a CES, it's really hard to do that personalization at scale. So that's where technology can kind of help facilitate it, have those different networking and design the event into like neighborhoods. Because if we think back to archaeological days and just how we're built as humans, the neighborhood, like back in the day, people didn't date anyone outside of like a 6-block radius of their house, and now with all the tech and like you could be dating someone on the other side of the world. I mean, there's an entire TV show based on people who date people on the other side of the world. So we can create that community feel by segmenting out different areas of the conference that can allow people with similar interests to be able to engage with each other.
I think that's brilliant because it also brings an understanding of the how our brains are wired to connect with people. And if you when you walk into an event space and just see like one big event floor with thousands of people milling around, you quickly get overloaded. And for a lot of people, if they're not super social or extroverted, can get really overwhelmed and just shut down because they aren't interested in exerting the sort of effort or brain power or whatever to try and engage all those people. They're just not good at it. And so having smaller spaces that help people already feel, like I said, like that sense of neighborhood and connectedness to people and help them kind of streamline or take some of the emotional and mental strain out of the process of connecting people at these huge events.
Yeah.
Makes a whole lot of sense for how to design them to be more user friendly.
For sure. And there's even ways, like there's a tech company that I work with that does registration where you can fill out what you're interested in when you register for the event. And when your badge prints out, you get a little pin that goes with your badge that says like the 5 things you're interested in. And it might be different colors. So as you're walking around, you could be like, oh my gosh, I'm also a super fan of artificial intelligence. I see that's on your badge. Like, what do you love? And it kind of helps break the ice a little bit because I'm very introverted myself. So walking, as you described, on a show floor with thousands of people, and you're just like, oh my God, if I have to talk to one more stranger or like exert the effort to be like, hi, I'm Megan, and do all the awkward small talk 100 times until you find the person. I mean, it can get exhausting. So anything to help sort of break that ice where it's not that awkward first interaction of like, who are you? Where are you from? What do you do? You can get all that kind of out of the way and just get to the root of the connection as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and I think having opportunities to effectively break that ice, or kind of like you with the neighborhoods, or like I love the idea of like badges and like colored stickers, some sort of icon that helps people shortcut that, oh, this is someone that I'm likely to have a good conversation with. Makes a lot of sense. And also I think thinking about and understanding just the like I said, like the overload that can happen, and especially with a multiple day event, because if it's going like CES is going on like right now, it's like if you're like even if you're into networking, by end of the week you're just going to be exhausted. Everyone's exhausted. And so
yeah,
building in things that make it easier for people to get what they want from the event is going to make the experience a lot easier for them and much more rewarding, and they're more likely to come back and speak highly of it.
Exactly. And isn't that the point of doing all the events? As an event organizers, we want to create that belonging space where someone can come, even if it's 100,000 person conference like CES is, they still feel like they're a person there and not just one of 140,000, that they got exactly what they needed out of that conference, whether that's business, networking, whatever it may be, discovering new products. Like they got what they need out of it. It's also why we're seeing a much larger emphasis in the last couple of years on what's called field marketing. This is not so much association space doesn't put as much emphasis on this as corporate does, but they're meeting customers and prospects in their own backyards. So they're going in region, they're going in market and meeting those people, because those intimate dinners, those intimate conversations where you're not one of 100,000 is a lot easier to facilitate conversation and the networking and really getting to engage with people at the end of the day. It's not the superficial, like I came to your trade show booth and you're selling me something. You can actually get to know someone on like a human level.
Yeah, I think that there's just one of the reasons I started this is this podcast is I think there's just a lack of human connection in the world. And so it's understanding people and meeting them where they are. Literally in the case of what you just described, that let's go to someone's neighborhood, go to their and meet them in their own backyards where they feel like themselves and natural, and it's not some overly scripted or overly homogenized experience. You get way more valuable insights when you get to know people who they really are, not just what they fill out on a survey, or the way they show up to an event and have their own little scripted responses to all the surface level generic questions like, so what do you do? And all these other questions that just don't really ever reach a meaningful connection. And it's exciting to like that you're seeing more of these sorts of events or activities where it's not just everyone come gather in one big spot and mill around to get nothing out of it, but or just get sold to a bunch of times by people at booths trying to hawk their wares at you. But it's like, let's meet you and do events that are much more intimate and dig deeper than companies have been in for the last decade. And it sounds like those sorts of events are paying dividends because people are actually connecting in the way that is really valuable. So if a company would like to throw events that are more effective like this and really get to know people and provide these sort of experiences, how would you suggest they get started?
Yeah, great question. The big thing is you have to really understand your audience. So if you have to understand what are their needs and where are they? Because I could throw a field marketing event all over the world, but it doesn't mean it's going to be impactful if I don't have the right people in the room. And it's kind of like the Hamilton song, like in the room where it happened. Like you have to have the right people in the right environment to do that. So there's a lot more thought that goes into these field marketing events than people think like, oh, you're just a party planner. Like there is a lot of data that I work with our customers on where we're digging deep and being like, okay, most of your customer base is on the East Coast. So if you do an event in California, guess who's probably not going to come? Someone from the East Coast is not going to fly to California for a 3-hour dinner. So why would we do it in California and not go somewhere on the East Coast where our customer base is? Or we have a target to go after XYZ prospect category, like say we're a manufacturing company or a tax software company, and we know we really want to go after medical organizations. Well, let's start looking at the data on where medical organizations actually are. Like, is it Ohio where Mayo Clinic or, so we have to really start looking at the data to understand who our customers are, what the target of a prospect is, who are we trying to, engage with so they'll buy our product or join our event or whatever, and then placing the events where those people are. Or the same question about the why. Like if it's a big conference, say a CES of 100,000, ask the simple question of, why are you here? Why did you come here? And then we can start tailoring sessions and activations and spoon feeding people personalization. Be like, here's 5 sessions we think you're going to want to go to, or 5 activations you should check out because you told us you're interested in networking, or you're here only to get education credits. So then we can start tailoring and personalizing that experience at scale.
Yeah, so it makes total sense that you have to start by listening and being curious about who your audience is and what they're actually looking for. And I think it also is helpful. You mentioned that if you're the location of where the company is, but also the location of where the people are that work at the company, because a lot of companies have like people that are working remotely, or they're not necessarily at the main corporate office. There's another like satellite offices. So doing your research on who you're trying to connect with, and then scheduling the events and planning them accordingly makes a lot of sense. What's a success story you've had of like kind of setting up an event that was able to really create an exceptional experience for people?
So one thing that I love to do at our events, and I do this at a lot, so I don't necessarily have a specific example because I do this a lot with our clients, is this is where the beauty of hybrid meetings come in, where we can start a lot of that networking and connection online before you even get there. Because from an event organizer standpoint, the event starts before people get in the building. The event starts the moment they leave their house. They're thinking and engaging with the event. So I have to think even before that. So I like to introduce event platforms, the mobile app, open it up for people, a week, 2 weeks, sometimes even 3 weeks in advance. So you can start having those conversations, like see what the AI is recommending, what sessions to go to, what people you should meet, and get all of that awkward, like, who are you? Where are you from? What do you do? Do all of that online so that when you get in person, you already feel like you have that connection. Like that was my favorite thing about coming out of the pandemic is digitally, we were all more connected than ever during the pandemic because that was the only option we had was to do what we're doing right now from across the globe, across the country, wherever. And then when a lot of the restrictions were getting lifted and we could go back in person, I met people in person that I had built a relationship with online for like 3 years that I had never met in person. We'd collaborated on projects, we'd put all these things together, but then to actually get to hug that person or see them in the flesh and be able to enhance that with in-person experience is my favorite thing about what I do. And I love that technology is finally catching up to allow us to start and be inclusive, because to our point earlier, an introvert is not going to walk on a show floor of thousands of people and be like, hell yeah, look at all these people I'm going to meet. That's not what they're going to do. But if I can sit behind my computer and send a couple notes to a few people and be like, hey, I think we have some things in common. I'd really love to chat. Do you have time at the show? We can get all that small talk. So when we finally get in person together, we're getting to the root of human to human engagement.
That's a brilliant combination of the digital and the virtual technology combining with in-person stuff to get, I love that, getting past all the kind of awkward surface level stuff online before the event even starts officially, so that when people show up and they meet someone, they're already feel like they know each other, and it gets the human to human aspect and the in-person aspect often running way quicker than if you had to start from scratch. Because those meetings, the events are often so like cram-packed with things, and people's schedules are so difficult that by the time you get through all the surface level stuff at the event, you have to go up to the next things. You don't really have a chance to build. So I love that inclusion of the technology to make the human connection more effective on the floor.
Yeah, and it helps your attendees show up intentionally, right? So like if I know why I'm coming, I can get all the other things and start prioritizing the areas, the people, the content that I want to consume when I get to the conference or the event or whatever it is. So I'm showing up intentionally and I know exactly why I'm there. I know exactly who I want to meet, and I'm not just wandering hallways trying to figure it out once I actually show up on site.
That makes so much sense. I think that's a great tip for anyone who's trying to have a successful event. Thank you so much for connecting with me today, Megan. I really enjoyed hearing how you make events more human to human connection centric. If you enjoyed this episode of the Human Connection Podcast, please leave a review, and share it. If you'd like to connect with myself or Megan, check out the links in the show notes. And remember, no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Happy connecting.